Hi, I'm Dave Cassilo, and welcome to a special edition of neo-varsity-live here on Sunday. I've got mark-kern and scott-patsko with me, and we are breaking down the football postseason for high school here in Ohio. The brackets were officially revealed earlier this afternoon, and we're going to attack it from all angles, and we want you to get involved too. Use hashtag neo-varsity to get in touch with us on Twitter, and you can also just drop down in the comment section and let us know how you feel about the playoffs and answer some of the questions that we're going to throw at each other here. And keep it locked on cleveland.com all week because we have a lot of coverage for each division, each team, each game that we're going to have coming up. So we'll start things off with the opening kickoff like we usually do. Mark, we'll start with you. What sticks out first when you look at these brackets here?
I think looking at the brackets, the thing that sticks out to me is St. Vincent St. Mary, a team that struggled early, really playing some great football. Hubbard, a very, very good team, is in their group. But I think St. Vincent St. Mary's got a very good chance to try to defend that state title.
Scott?
I think seeing Lorain in the bracket stands out to me. The first time ever and first time in a long time that a Lorain school has been in. So that kind of stood out.
Mark, what team had the most surprising regular season?
I'm going to go Berea Mid-Park. I think this is a team last year, first year as a program. This year, really put it together, won the conference title, and I think the Titans definitely showed that they have a chance to do something this playoffs.
I think for me, it's the team that beat them in Week 10, Midview. I don't think anybody knew they had this in them, finishing first in the region and just really becoming this explosive offense with a new quarterback in Dustin Crum.
Lorain and Keystone both in for the first time. Who has the best chance to sort of make a run and win at least one playoff game?
I'm going to go Keystone. I think C.J. Conrad, most games will be the best player on the field, and I feel if you have the best player on the field, you're going to have a chance. And both of these teams are hungry, but I like Keystone.
Lorain's got a tough draw in Menor. I'm going to say Keystone, too. I think, honestly, I'm not going to say I know a lot about Bellevue, but I think from what they've done and just that matchup in general, the Keystone, I think, is going to go out.
We had Menor, St. V, Glenville, Kirtland all go to the state championship game last year. Let's exclude Kirtland because I think they have a really good chance. But of those other three teams, who has the best chance to get back to a state title game?
I'm going to go Menor. Obviously, Division I, very difficult. They did lose to Hudson, but I think this is a team almost kind of needed that wake-up call, and I think that the Cardinals are going to be ready to go.
I think it's Menor, too. They're in the tough top of the half of the bracket there with Hudson and St. Ignatius. But they beat St. Ignatius. The Hudson game, they didn't play their best. So I think out of those choices, I think Menor is the one.
Toughest region out there?
Division II, Region 3, you have Nordonia and, Nordonia, Bedford, teams like that, I think very, very good.
Maybe Region 19 and Division 6, Kirtland, Mogador, Loudonville, Garraway. I mean, it's pretty stacked.
Now, first year, we go to Columbus for the state championship after being in Canton for a while. What do you like better, Canton or Columbus?
I don't really like Columbus. I like Canton. I like, obviously, Columbus, a huge stadium, but I don't think it's going to be as full. And I think when you're at Canton, it looked a lot better. The crowds were closer to the game. So I'm a little disappointed. I'd have liked it to stay in Canton.
Scott?
I'm going to say Canton, too. I'm not looking forward to the 20 minutes it's going to take to get from the press box to the field and just being up there far away from everything. It is in the stands, too. I think Canton's choice.
Potential matchup, not this weekend, but the week after. Hudson, St. Ignatius would be a playoff rematch. If it came to that, who do you think would win that, Mark?
I like Hudson this year, obviously playing some tremendous football. They lost to St. Ignatius last year in a pretty competitive game until Mitch Gudani went out. I think Hudson, just how they looked at Menor, won a little rematch, and I think it'd be the Explorers.
I think I'd take Hudson, too. Beating Menor was nice, and that was a big thing for them, but I think St. Ignatius is the game they want because they want to prove that they can play on that stage against that team.
Another potential second weekend rematch, Bedford and Glenville. Glenville won last year. Who do you like this year?
Going to go Bedford. I think this would be a fast pace. Both teams are really going to run the ball, good defenses, but I think Shantez Moss and London Cloud would be the difference.
Scott?
I think the key here is what kind of quarterback play that Glenville gets here in Week 1 if that matchup happens, but I have to take Bedford, too. I think they have a little bit too much and just season-long-wise going through it.
Best passing attack left in the playoffs, Mark?
I'm going to go with your Midview. Obviously, what Dustin Crum this year, very, very impressive. And I think Midview, as you said, didn't know what they were getting, but this team's for real.
Yeah, Midview, too. I haven't seen a team that is throwing it around as well as them. I mean, Hudson's close, but I think Midview just uses their weapons so much better.
Best rushing attack?
Going to go Bedford here with the aforementioned Shantez Moss and London Cloud. Both of them, they're splitting carry, so they don't have the numbers they could. in Bedford, you know they're going to run the ball, and teams haven't been able to stop it.
All right, Mark's got to stop looking at my answers, because I'm going to go with Bedford, too. Two options there at running back, and they've been doing it all season. I think Bedford's the one.
And best defense?
Going to go St. Edward here. Obviously, I think this secondary, I can't imagine finding very many high school secondaries better than this. You can't pass on them. And I like the Eagles seeing what they did in Week 10.
I think that's an easy choice. And the last few weeks here, they've shut down some pretty good teams, and just Division I recruits all over the place on that defense. I think they're the easy choice.
Well, hopefully we don't get the same answer again. Last question here. What are we talking about after the first week of the playoffs?
I think we'll be talking about a rematch. Avon plays Midview in a Week 2, and obviously Midview ended the winning streak of Avon. I think we're talking about the Eagles looking for some revenge.
I don't know if we're talking about any real big upsets at all. I think we're just really looking forward to those Week 2 matchups, and maybe the Hudson St. Ignatius one obviously would be a top one.
Great. All right. Well, we'll play some more of these fun games a little later. Now we're going to turn our attention to Rob Clarico, the head coach of Keystone. Keystone in the playoffs for the first time, and we are now joined by Coach Clarico. How are you doing, Coach?
Doing great. It's really exciting times for us out here.
Coach, take me through what the last week has been like for you. I know that you guys lost to Buckeye, and you were sort of, just hoping you could get the job done in the final week of the season. What's the last week been for you guys?
Well, like you said, it's been a little bit of a roller coaster ride. Going into that Buckeye game, there was a lot riding on it. The conference championship was riding on it. At the time, we thought a playoff berth was riding on it. So we played a great first half against them, and they kind of wore us down in the second half. And, we got back into the locker room. There was a lot of sad faces there. And I said, let's wake up tomorrow. Let's figure out what's going on. And maybe we get a chance to reach some of our goals. And by Sunday, we knew that a win against Black River was probably going to get us in the playoffs, so we were ready to go the next week.
What about the job you guys did against Black River? There was no need for any extra energy. You guys came out and pretty much put that game away early.
We did. We got a lot of breaks went our way early, and, the kids earned those breaks. We went down and scored right away. Then on the next kickoff, they fumbled it. We got it and scored in 3 plays, and then we onside-ed, got that, and scored on the next play, and all of a sudden we're 3 touchdowns up with only 5 minutes into the game, and that really got us going, obviously.
Describe what it was like in the locker room after the game when you knew that you guys had clinched that first playoff appearance.
It was a celebration. Guys were in there. I was standing outside the locker room talking to the coaches, but I could hear them singing in there and chanting and just having a great time, talking about the playoffs. And I know it was a relief for those guys. There was so much expectations on that group. They had won a conference championship last year at our school for the first time in 40 years, and most of the team was back. So the community expected a lot out of them, and they delivered in the end.
Now, what do you think has been the biggest key? Last year, you guys fell a little short, but this year you were able to get the job done. So what was the difference?
Well, like I said, last year we went 7-3, and we lost to Cloverleaf and Buckeye and Galleon. And this year we went 8-2 and beat Cloverleaf, lost to Galleon and Buckeye. So that Cloverleaf game obviously was the big difference.
Now, what do you know about your opponent here in Bellevue for the first round?
Well, Bellevue has an outstanding tradition of playoff appearances. I think it was just 3 years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that they were in the state finals. They're experienced at this stuff, and this is our very first time. So that might play into it a little bit. They have an outstanding rushing attack, 2 different quarterbacks, a senior quarterback that throws the ball really well, and then a sophomore quarterback who's a slot receiver for him when the other quarterback's in. The sophomore comes in at quarterback, and he's run for over 1,000 yards at that quarterback position. So there's a lot to defend there. They look fast, athletic, and strong.
And now, last question for you, Coach. It's been a remarkable run. How do you now turn your team's attention? I mean, I knew that it was such a big goal all year long just to make the playoffs. And now you've got to, refocus and be like, all right, we want to do a little more. How do you go about focusing them again?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that they soak it up and really enjoy it. And so I don't want to go too much into, hey, just this is a football game and we got to win. Look around. They accomplished something great. And how do we get them to get ready to win? You just get into that rhythm of the week. Once we get there on Monday and we're looking at film and we're out on the field on Tuesday hitting each other, they realize we're doing the same thing in week 11 that we did the first 10 weeks. And that rhythm, that routine of a football week, I think is going to help them a lot focus on the job that needs to be done.
All right, Coach. Well, thanks very much for joining us, and good luck here in the playoffs.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, that's Coach Clarico. His Keystone Wildcats, one of 3 teams from the Patriot Athletic Conference to make it, also Columbia and Buckeye. So a good year for the conference.
All right, well, like a lot of people here in Ohio, we've been looking at brackets really since last night and trying to figure out what some of our favorite matchups were. So now we're going to kind of go through the brackets ourselves and talk about which are some of the best opening round games. I'll start off in Division II. Glenville and Willoughby South kind of stands out for me as one that I'd want to see. Really because Glenville is kind of an unknown at this point. They've been playing mostly without a quarterback the past 7 weeks. Nobody's really sure what they're going to look like against Willoughby South. You got 2 teams that have a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. So for me, I think that's a game that I think a lot of people are really looking forward to. What's the best opening round game for you, David?
For me, the one that really sticks out is Highland and Avon, rematch of last year's regional final, which was a really good game that Highland wound up winning by 3 points. And these are 2 teams that are a lot different, though. There are a lot of turnover in the rosters over the last year for them, for Highland and Avon. Avon's been dealing with some injuries to Garrett Choate, quarterback Jake Sopko getting sort of first real playoff experience here. So. And then on the Highland side of things, you lose Bruce Kinsey was a great quarterback last year, and now it's a really run-focused team with Nick Corvo and Grant Wallace. So I think it's going to be 2 teams that are sort of feeling their way through the playoffs, but I still think you're going to get another classic, probably 1-score game that's really going to come down to the end. Highland is the 4, but I think these teams are sort of inseparable at this point, and I think it makes a nice way to set up Division II, which is going to be a dogfight the entire playoffs.
I think last year has them fired up, too, for that game.
Yeah.
Both sides, so.
I'm going to go Kinston-Aurora. These 2 teams played in Week 10. Kinston was able to get the victory, but I think both teams kind of knew they were going to, a potential playoff matchup. So maybe some of these teams didn't show everything that they had going into that game. And I think this is going to be another treat. That was for the CVC title last week, but playoffs now, I think you're going to see the game taking to a whole nother level. So I think that's definitely the game to look forward to.
Well, how about some upsets? So why don't you run us through some of those?
I am going to go with Gilmore over Youngstown Liberty. I think Gilmore, a very explosive offense, has a lot of playmakers that are capable of getting the win, and I think they've shown they can score enough points, and I think they're going to get it, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Gilmore's a very strong team and one that has sort of been dealing with injuries down the stretch. So if they're healthy, they can get it done. For me, it's Brecksville potentially knocking off Madison. I think Brecksville is a team that is very dangerous because their 2 losses are Hudson, top team in Division I, Berea Mid-Park, another strong Division I team. Not a team that's lost to anyone below Division I. Madison has struggled a little versus teams that aren't at that level. So I think when you look at Brecksville, you look at, as you said earlier, best player on the field, Tyler Tupa is the best player on the field. I think Brecksville could have a recipe to have a knockoff for the 6-3 matchup.
Mine's down in Division IV, Notre Dame Cathedral Latin and Field. NDCL is a 6 seed, playing a 3 seed. I think they win that game. I think it comes down to how they've been prepared for this season. You have a conference in the North Coast League they're playing a lot of Division II and Division III teams. They played powerhouses like Hubbard and Benedictine. I think that's prepared them a little better than a Portage Trail has for a Field. They've had a good season, but I just think the strength of the conference is going to kind of shine through when they get to that point.
And Scott, we actually had a commenter ask, does Elyria, who has a lot of team speed, can really spread it out against a big, powerful St. Ignatius team, does Elyria have a chance in that game?
That's a tough call. I mean, I guess if St. Ignatius plays the way they did against St. Edward, maybe, but that's a tough task for Elyria to come through on that because you have a team that's got a lot more playoff experience, I think, and not just that, but in coaching-wise compared to what Elyria is bringing in. They both have a lot of new faces this year, but it's at St. Ignatius. I think the Wildcats pull that out.
I just have to say, Elyria does have a lot of momentum. I mean, they've played really, really well recently. I still think St. Ignatius wins, but you know, it's a game that St. Ignatius is coming off of the St. Edward game, so they were all jacked up for that. They know that when they play Hudson, so, you know, you don't really view playoff games as trap games, but it is a bit of a trap game right here.
All right, well, we're going to move on and talk about one of our first-timers, and that's Lorain in Division I. They got into the playoffs as a 13th seed. They'll play Mentor on Saturday, and right now joining us is Lorain coach Dave McFarland. Coach, how you doing? Thanks for joining us.
No, thanks for having us on.
Now, this is going to be the second time ever that Lorain City School has been in the playoffs. First time, of course, was back in '84 with Admiral King. What do you think is the key for getting Lorain to finally break through and get back to the playoffs?
Well, we've had a great year with just a group of seniors and great leadership from that senior group, so that's helped us have a great season and put us in this position.
As the regular season neared an end, did you get to the point where you knew that you were going to probably get in? And what was the reaction like, in the city and in the school to the fact that Lorain would be going to the playoffs?
Oh, it was exciting. There was actually, the excitement got so dragged on great that it was a hard week last week. Just a lot of pressure on our kids and a lot of genuine excitement. Just learning how to feel winning. And everybody was getting that to keep our kids calm and doing good practice. They came out and played quick practice on Friday night against Warren Harding, and it was a big win. And fun to see the community celebrate and everybody. So it's meant a lot to that community just to have a winning season and then, of course, make the playoffs.
Now, this is your first year at Lorain. When you took over this program, you were taking over a team that had 5 wins over 2 seasons. So when you're coming into this, what were your goals at the beginning of the year?
Well, we knew we'd have our hands full, and we wanted to start with our freshman program. A lot of emphasis there. We didn't have a freshman team the year before, and this year we had 45 kids on the freshman team. They went undefeated, and a good majority of those kids are on the honor roll. So that's where we had planned to start, and that's what we did, and we feel good about that. But then, like I said, our seniors really stepped up. They bought into what we were asking them to do, and we've got some pretty exceptional football players, and it turned out to be a great year.
Now, you're jumping into the playoffs with both feet here against Mentor, which is a team that brings in a pretty big resume. You hear coaches talk about losing the game before you get off the bus. What do you do to make sure your kids are mentally prepared for this and don't be overwhelmed by the moment?
Well, there's no doubt. It's a big situation, and they're a traditional powerhouse. We have our hands full there, but what we need to do is worry about Lorain that we've done all year, and we need to prepare on fixing our mistakes and getting better as a team, get off that bus, and let's go toe-to-toe with them and see what happens.
Now, you've been through this as a player, part of the Elyria Catholic state title team back in '76. What from that experience do you want to relate to your players as they get ready for the playoffs?
Well, we've already talked a little bit about, one, let's enjoy the moment, and also when we get to practice, turn off the noise and just get focused on preparing, because you play big games, and when you're an underdog, you've got to execute. You can't make mistakes. We're going to have to play a perfect game, and so we need to be real focused when we're at practice. But our young guys have to also understand that it's a time of their life they should enjoy the moment, and it's going to be a hell of an atmosphere over there.
Was there a game this season that, when you look back at it now, it kind of stands out as the game where you saw how good you can be as a team?
Yeah, I thought we thought we could have beaten it through game 1, and we just made too many mistakes, and then we came back and we were down the area, and then we just came back and really played well and throttled them and beat them up, and that was a turning point. Then we stumbled again in the middle of the season, and again, typically they might have just packed. Our were brilliant, and we won the last 3 games of the season. I think we played really good football at the end of the season. So I think it's been kind of a roller coaster year. It teaches them how to win and how to handle losing and how to handle winning, and they've done a nice job.
So going forward, what kind of impact do you want to have this season to have on your program?
Well, I feel good about it. Number one, like I said, we wanted to build a freshman program that didn't have one, so we feel good about that. And number two, the fact we had a winning season, we went to playoffs. Not only do we want to go over there and play good football, but we want our young people to see, what it is that Mentor does. And this is what you want to be the best, you got to play the best. And when we walk away from that game, whether we win or lose, we want our kids to see that that's where we want to be. We want to be a mentor, and what do we got to do to get there, strength-wise, skill-wise, those kinds of things. So we're excited to go over there and play one of the best teams in the state of Ohio.
All right, well, Coach, congratulations again on making it to the playoffs, and we'll all be following you this weekend as you take on Menor, and thanks again for joining us.
All right, thanks a lot.
All right, guys, this is the portion I'm really excited for. This is where we're talking about the must-see players, the guys who could really take their team deep into the playoffs. Dave, who are you looking at?
I think the player that I really look at is the player that, for my money, has had the best season in Northeast Ohio this year, and that is Denzel Ward. He's one of those rare players who, I mean, you could consider him for offensive or defensive player of the year. On offense, he's got over 800 yards, 10 touchdowns. Defensively, 8 interceptions. He's a playmaker. He's an Ohio State commit, and Nordonia is going to need him to play well because they have a really, really tough road in Region 4, and then you got to get out of that and play the best team in Region 3, and then you got to probably play a team like Cincinnati LaSalle to win the state title. So he's got to play well for Nordonia.
Not going to hear any arguments from me. Scott, who are you going to say?
I'm going to go with a similar all-purpose player in Sean Crawford of St. Edward. I think he's a player that I don't think they wanted to use as much on offense this year, but injuries have kind of forced their hand, and you saw a lot of that against St. Ignatius where he was going on patterns and kind of putting him in spaces where he can create. He had 2 touchdown catches in that game, had the 99-yard kickoff return, which was kind of sensational. So obviously he's good in special teams as well, and then had a big interception, which led to a touchdown, and he's been tough on defense all year. He's a Notre Dame commit. And I think he's somebody that going forward into the playoffs, you're going to see them using him more and more in all phases.
I'm going to go Justin Lane from Benedictine. When you look at him, the Bengals do a great job of running the ball, and I think opposing defenses are really going to load the box with an extra defender, and really force Sheffer to try to beat him. And if you give Justin Lane one-on-one coverage, he's got a very good chance of beating him. So I think if the Bengals are going to go as far as they really plan to, I think Justin Lane is going to be a huge part of that, Dave.
Cool. All right, now over to our favorite game, could, should, will. It has led to mixed results for us all season long, but we're starting fresh in the postseason, and I think we're going to do very well. So I'll start it off with what could happen. I think that Aurora could avenge its loss against Kenston last week and get a playoff victory here.
I'm going to say Avon could beat Midview in the rematch. I think that's going to happen, and I'm ready for it.
Again, Mark's stealing my answers. I'm going to say we could see Avon Midview Part 2. I think that's very likely to happen.
All right, now over to should. I think Nordonia should have to beat 2 undefeated teams just to get out of its region. They would potentially have to play Perrysburg, and then if they win that, they would potentially have to play Midview. So, and then if they win that, they might have to play Bedford too. So we'll see the type of run they're on. Mark.
I'm going to say should. St. Vincent St. Mary should be able to try to defend their state title against Hubbard, one of the best teams in the state, in a regional final. And I think that would be a great matchup, Scott.
I think we should see Hudson St. Ignatius, a rematch of last year's second-round game. We should see that again this season. I think both teams have very winnable games in the first round, and that should happen again.
And now what will happen, Northeast Ohio will have at least two state champions. I think Kirtland will definitely get it, and then I would have to put my money on at least one other team winning a state title.
I'm going to up you a little bit, David. I'm going to go 4 state champions from the local area. I'm going to go Benedictine. We'll save those for the picks later.
I said at least 2, so
Yeah.
I might see 4 too.
I like 4, Scott.
I'm not going to go with a state championship pick here. I'm going to go with we will see Hudson and St. Edward playing for a spot in the Division I state final. I think that's a matchup that is going to happen. Hudson's got a tougher road, but I think that's something that's going to happen.
Lot of intriguing matchups, and we are now joined by. Look, when you're looking at the rest, obviously, a little hold on the phone call, Dave. So let's talk a little bit more about these playoffs. Scott, potentially, I know we're looking down the line, but that Midview Avon, what would be intriguing about that game to you?
I think whether or not, I know Garrett Cho got hurt in that game, but Sonny Cooper came in and did a good job. I think having Cho back healthy for a whole game changes it a little bit. Seeing how Avon handles Dustin Crum, though, is going to be the key, because he, like he's done with just about every team, has been able to run and throw and move Midview up and down the field. You know, nobody's really shut them down yet. So for me, it's Will Choate be healthy? Will the Avon running game be at full speed? And how does Avon's defense handle Midview?
I think anytime you see a 30-game losing streak ended, David, that's pretty big time. Is there any other matchups you would like to see? Second round, maybe?
Second round, I really would like to see Bedford-Glenville. I think it's a Bedford team that won't admit it, but I think they want to be Glenville. I've talked to Coach Williams about it in the past, and he says he wants to be better than Glenville, but I think being a perennial state title contender is a pretty good thing. And, they play similar styles, and it just would be a fun game. It would be a good atmosphere. I was at the game last year where Bedford played really well for 3 quarters against Glenville, but wasn't able to get it done, and I think it would be interesting to see it. But also in the Lake Erie League, and I want to talk about a team that Scott just talked to their coach, Lorain. They nearly knocked off Midview. They played with Bedford for 3 quarters. I do think that Lorain-Mentor game could be a little better than people think. I know Mentor's a good team, but has sort of not played its best football down the stretch. Is there any other game that you guys feel like, we could see a big time upset?
I kind of agree with what you said earlier, Scott. I don't see a ton of upsets necessarily. I think Kinston, if you consider that an upset, they beat Aurora last week. But I think, as Scott said, a lot of the top seeds, I think, are going to come out and really take care of business in this first week of the playoffs.
I think Division 6 is intriguing because Villa Angela St. Joseph did get in, and they kind of pumped up their schedule a little bit this year to get better competition, and it almost worked against them. But how they figure into that trinity of Loudonville, Kirtland, and Mogador down there, it's everybody, I guess, figures Kirtland's going to get out of there, but Villa Angela St. Joseph, I think, is kind of the dark horse there, and nobody's really sure. I know they got beat pretty bad by Kirtland, but you learn a lot going through a game like that, and the second time around, it could be a tougher game.
Yeah, definitely. And then what about a division that we haven't really talked about? You mentioned them a little. Division 5. You've got Gilmore, you got Beechwood, and you've got Columbia. Those are the only 3 local teams we have in there. Of those 3, who's most capable of putting it together?
I think all 3 of those do have pretty big very difficult matchups. I do like Gilmore to pull the upset. Youngstown Liberty's 9-1. Haven't played a lot of teams. They actually lost to Villa Angela St. Joseph 54-29 in week 1. And I just think Beechwood and Columbia have 2 very, very difficult matchups. Beechwood does a great job of scoring as well, but I'm not sure if any of those other 2 teams really have a great chance in this week.
I think Beechwood opened a lot of eyes against Kirtland. They were winning in the 4th quarter. Kirtland didn't play their best game. They had some turnovers, but I think after that game, maybe people look at Beechwood a little bit differently. I know they don't have the greatest matchup here in the first round, but maybe they're a team that got confidence from that and can make a run and pull an upset.
And then when you look at Division 2, I know that Division 1 obviously has a lot of strong teams, but Division 2, it just seems like you can pick 6 or 7 teams from Region 3 or 4 to make it out of there. What do you think when you look at Division 3 and Division 4? Who do you see as meeting in that regional final? You got Bedford, Nordonia, Midview, Perrysburg, Massillon, Washington's a 6 seed. What do you think?
I think there are a ton of matchups in that. I think maybe the most intriguing matchups of any division when you're talking the potentially Glenville Bedfords, Nordonia Avons. I mean, there's just a lot of very good teams. The out of local area teams are also very good. So I think Division 2 may have some of the most competitive games in the state playoffs.
Well, I think if it's not Nordonia and Midview meeting at some point there, I think that would be kind of a disappointment to everybody because everybody wants to see that matchup happen, But for me, that's the one at least I would be looking forward to.
Great.
As far as, you mentioned Lorain, Midview, I know in talking to them earlier this season, they point to that game as the one that kind of turned, or at least gave them confidence because Lorain did give them a tough fight. Yeah. But going against Mentor, I don't know if Lorain has enough firepower to beat a Cardinals team that's probably upset right now that they're not the #1 team in the region after losing to Hudson.
That's true.
So.
I think we're going to move on to our state title picks at this point. So
yeah, let's do that. We're going to run through. We each made predictions on all 7 divisions, even though I personally have been following all 7 divisions. But we're going to do our best and see how we go, and we'll mark this down to make sure we keep track of who got it right. What we'll do is we'll go through each one by one, and we'll start off with Division 1. I'll go with St. Edward, and I have a feeling Mark's going to pick the same team because he has all my answers tonight.
Exactly. That's who I picked from week 1. I think they kind of struggled. They had that tough stretch, lost Alex Stump, lost some games, but that defense good luck throwing on them.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hudson. It's sort of, I don't want to take a cop-out because I'm picking Hudson #1 in my poll this week. So if I think they're better, then I should pick them in both. So I'm going to go with Hudson.
Yeah, I'm going to, real quick though, more on St. A few weeks ago I might have picked Hudson, but after seeing St. Edward the last couple of weeks, it kind of changed my mind that they're back to that team that we thought they would be at the beginning of the year, you know.
And actually, Scott, we were both at the game in Week 1. What is different from St. Edward that you saw Saturday compared to that Week 1 game against Gilman?
I think they're more driven now because they came out and they didn't have a lot of competition the first couple of weeks, but they had the losses. They lost Stump. They had some changes on their offensive line. They've had just some turmoil to deal with, and I think now they're a little more driven and want to get after it. So, all right, let's move on to Division 2. I'm going to go with Cincinnati LaSalle, team down in Cincinnati, who's played against teams like Moeller, Elder, St. Xavier, and has come through pretty well against those teams. They beat Moeller. I think they're the cream of the crop as far as Division 2 goes.
I'm going to go Nordonia. I've been very high on this team all year, as you know, Scott, and I just think the way David Murray's playing and Denzel Ward, Alex Elders on receiver, I think this is a team that can score with anybody. And they have enough size up front to I like Nordonia to get this.
I'm going to go Nordonia. Again, they were my preseason pick. They've done nothing to dissuade me at this point. They had a tough test in Week 1, but it's been a cakewalk since then. I do have to say what I do like about LaSalle is it's a much easier road. I think it's far more likely LaSalle will reach the state final just because they don't have to play teams like Perrysburg and Midview and potentially Bedford. But I do think at the end of the day, Nordonia is the most talented team, and I think talent pays off.
Okay. Division 3, I know we have some contenders in our local area, but I'm going to go with Hubbard with my pick. What do you got?
That's a very good pick. Scott is a terrific running back. I'm going to go Trotwood Madison. This is a team that lost to St. Vincent St. Mary 24-0 last year in the state title. Messiah DeWeaver, junior quarterback, Michigan commit, very talented player. Was young in that game. You could tell wasn't ready for the moment, but I think he is now.
I'm going to go with Hubbard too. I will say the Irish are playing very well right now, and they have what they really didn't have much of last year. They have a passing attack. Dom Davis has really stepped up, and that could be a big difference.
All right, Division 4, I'm going to go with the local team, Benedictine actually, and I got to see them against Welsh Jesuit, and they were just powerful on both sides of the ball. And Jerome Baker, whether he's taking snaps or chasing down every single runner, is just really impressive. And the schedule they play is higher. It's not a Division 4 schedule, so I think that prepares them. And just the playmakers they have. You mentioned Justin Lane earlier. I think they're impressive, and they're going to win Division 4.
I'm going to go Benedictine, but potentially that state title could be determined in the second round if Benedictine and Youngstown Cardinal Mooney meet. Yeah. Last year, Benedictine got up 14-0 on them early. Lost the game 28-21, and I think Benedictine gets revenge this year and wins a tough second-round game on their way to state.
Before I got on the show, I was going to say Benedictine, but I'm going to go Cardinal Mooney. I'm going to flip-flop. I think the Bengals are good. They're just, I don't know. I saw them against Bedford, and they were sort of embarrassed.
Division 2 versus Division 4.
I know, sort of, but Cardinal Mooney's a good team, and I mean, like Cardinal Mooney they're a higher quality team than Division 4. They've got that talent. So I do think that they will knock off Benedictine.
And Cardinal Mooney played St. Edward and beat St. Vincent St. Mary pretty handedly, so not a bad pick there, definitely, Dave.
Yeah, although they were really outmatched against St. Edward. I was at that game. Division 5, I'm going to go with Coldwater because I'm pretty sure Coldwater wins every year.
I'm not going to argue with that. This is a program that just wins, Dave.
Clean sweep here, Coldwater. I think we can have another one right now.
Division 6, I'm going to go with Kirtland. I think they make it back there and win. It's not the same team as last year. They're not scoring 60 points a game, and they just don't have the power that they do. But I think the playoff-tested group that they have makes it back there and gets the title.
I'm going to go Kirtland as well, but regional final, Mogador against Kirtland, I think, could be one of the best games in the playoffs in any division.
Yeah, I really liked Mogador this year, but Kirtland is the team to beat at this point. But it's just going to be a much tougher road than last year.
All right, Division 7, which we have no local teams in, but I'm going to go with Norwalk St. Paul. They're kind of a dark horse. I know with everybody, Marion Local is kind of the popular pick because they keep on winning, but I'm going to go with St. Paul.
I'm going to go Marion Local, just kind of like you said. This is another program that just has continued to win, and they understand these big games, and they'll be ready.
I'm going to go with Shady Side. I picked them before the year. They're 9-0. Why jump off the bus now?
Okay. All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for our picks, and please don't pay attention to those because I'm sure we're going to mess some of them up. I want to thank Dave Cassilo and mark-kern for being here and talking football. And I want to remind you to stick around on cleveland.com for all our coverage this week. We have tons of previews looking ahead to the playoffs. We have a division-by-division breakdown of all 7 divisions, and you'll be able to see more coverage as the week goes on. So again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.